The Girl Who Solved the Impossible. Part 1. The Unseen. The scent of old textbooks and budget-grade disinfectant clung to the halls of Jefferson High as Amara Bennett stepped through the front doors for the first time. The building was unfamiliar, colder than her old school, and despite the buzz of morning chatter, she felt utterly invisible. No one looked at her, no one spoke to her, but she could feel the judgment hanging in the air like thick fog. She hadn't wanted to leave Riverside High, a rough but familiar place where she had carved out her identity. But when her mother, a nurse, got reassigned to a hospital on the other side of the city, Amara had no choice. Jefferson was supposed to be more diverse, as her mom had put it, though all Amara saw were clusters of cliques and corridors lined with faces that quickly looked away. Her first class confirmed her fears. Students whispered in huddles, exchanging glances as she walked in. The teacher, Mr. Dalton, barely looked up when calling her name from the roster, mispronouncing it before moving on without apology. During lunch, she found an empty table near the back of the cafeteria. No one joined her. No one even acknowledged her. Amara was used to being overlooked, but this was different. This was more than indifference. It was the cold dismissal of someone who didn't belong. When the final bell rang, most students poured out laughing, joking, making plans for the weekend. Amara, however, had no such luxury. She had work in 20 minutes. She kept her head down, weaving through the halls like a ghost. Blending in had become second nature, a survival tactic. If teachers didn't see you, they didn't expect much. If classmates didn't notice you, they didn't ask questions you couldn't answer. Outside, the late afternoon air was tinged with the smell of freshly mowed grass and old bus exhaust. Her route to work took her past flickering neon signs, empty convenience stores, and cracked sidewalks. She arrived at Myra's Diner, a family-run hole-in-the-wall she'd found through a neighbor. "You're 2 minutes late," grumbled Mrs. Mira, the owner, without glancing up from the cash register. "I ran from school," Amara said quietly, shoving her backpack into a cubby behind the counter. "Still late, Mrs. Mira muttered again, though without real malice. Her shift was a blur, plates clattering, coffee being refilled, customers absorbed in their phones or conversations. Amara moved swiftly, her mind somewhere else entirely. The day's calculus problems swirled in her head, half-solved equations chasing themselves across her thoughts like ghosts. On her break, she squeezed into the narrow supply closet and pulled out her notebook, faded blue cover, pages bent and smudged. She flipped to a half-filled page and started scribbling, trying to hold onto the logic before it slipped through her fingers. This was her method. No tutors. No extra help. Just stolen moments in closets, empty corners, and diner booths. A quiet war against forgetting. Where her shift ended, night had swallowed the neighborhood. Street lamps flickered above empty sidewalks, and the occasional car slid past with headlights like searchlights. Still, Amara didn't head home. Not yet. Jefferson High's library stayed open late on Fridays. She had keys to the back door, a courtesy extended to her after she volunteered to help organize the math section during orientation. No one expected her to use it for anything else. Inside, the lights were dim but familiar. Dust floated in lazy patterns through the air. She ran her fingers along cracked spines and frayed covers, scanning for a book she hadn't already memorized. She wasn't just studying for a test. She was studying for something no one else seemed to think she deserved. A future. One she intended to claim with or without anyone's permission. Part 2. The challenge. She was mid-equation, chin resting in her palm, when footsteps broke the silence. Seriously? A voice scoffed from behind her. Amara stiffened, instantly recognizing the tone. Lana Kendrick. Wealthy, perfectly dressed, always flanked by 2 carefully curated friends. Lana's smile didn't reach her eyes as she leaned against the bookshelf. "Didn't think this was your vibe?" Lana sneered. "Pretty sure the basic math books are that way." One of her friends giggled behind a manicured hand. Amara calmly closed her book. "I'm in the right section," she said evenly. Lana's eyes narrowed. "What? You think you're a genius or something? Just because Mr. Callahan let you write on the board once. That stung more than she expected. She had worked for weeks to understand that equation, stayed up until dawn, but to Lana, it was just a fluke. Another punchline. It's kind of adorable, Lana went on. The girl who serves fries, trying to act like she belongs here. Amara stood, eyes meeting Lana's with a quiet intensity. We'll see who belongs when I leave this town, and you're still here playing prom queen. That shut Lana up, if only for a second. Amara walked away, book clutched tightly in her hand, back straight. She had work to do. The next morning, math class was silent as Amara walked in. Mr. Callahan glanced up from the board. Amara, he said with faux enthusiasm, why don't you come solve this for us? The board behind him was filled with a nightmare of an equation. Nonlinear, multivariable, the kind of problem meant to intimidate. She knew what this was. A test, but not the kind she could prepare for. Students snickered, and Callahan leaned back, arms crossed, smiling like a man waiting for someone to drown. Amara approached the board. She didn't think about Lana, or Callahan, or the whispers. She thought only of the numbers. Numbers were safe. Numbers didn't lie. She picked up the chalk and began. She worked with quiet precision, breaking the problem down like pieces of a song only she could hear. The room slowly fell silent as she moved methodically, never hesitating. Whispers turned to wide-eyed stares. Even Callahan's smirk began to falter. When she stepped back, the equation complete, she turned and said simply, that should be right. Callahan approached the board. His face twitched. He checked, double-checked, then turned away quickly. Lucky guess, he muttered. There's no luck in math, Amara said. It's either right or it's not. A voice cut through the tension. That was more than right. All eyes turned. A tall man in a tailored blazer stepped forward from the back of the room. Dr. Maxwell Reeves, Callahan said, his tone suddenly uncertain. I didn't realize you were. I was observing, Dr. Reeves replied smoothly. Then, turning to Amara, that equation was graduate level. And you solved it like it was nothing. Amara blinked, unsure what to say. I recruit for the National Mathematics Scholars Program, he continued. And I'd like to invite you to take our placement exam. If you pass, you'll be eligible for a full scholarship to a top-tier university. Callahan bristled. With all due respect, Dr. Reeves. She's exactly the kind of student we look for, Reeves cut in. And whether or not you saw that potential is irrelevant. He handed Amara a business card. Sleek, heavy. Her fingers closed around it before she even realized what she was doing. I'll do it, she said. Part 3, the test of her life. The days that followed were a blur of determination and exhaustion. Amara had exactly 1 week to prepare for the biggest academic challenge she'd ever face. Her mornings began before sunrise, solving equations over a cup of coffee while her mother prepped for her 12-hour hospital shifts. At school, she ignored the stares, the whispers, the sudden shift in attention. Teachers who had never said her name before were now asking if she needed anything. Students who once mocked her now watched her like she might levitate. Afternoons were for Myra's Diner. She still worked her full shifts, plates to wash, booze to clean, orders to take. But every break was sacred. She scribbled notes on the backs of receipts, solved integration problems on napkins, filled the margins of menus with derivatives and limits. Her nights belonged to the kitchen table. A fortress of borrowed textbooks, open notebooks, and flashcards surrounded her like armor. Her laptop, a secondhand gift from a retired neighbor, wheezed with age but still opened PDFs and YouTube lectures. One night, her mother leaned against the doorway, watching. You've barely slept, she said gently. Just one more problem, Mama, Amara murmured, eyes fixed on a particularly nasty trigonometric identity. Her mother disappeared for a few minutes, then returned with a plate of sliced apples and a steaming mug of tea. She set them down without a word, kissed her daughter on the forehead, and left her to her battle. The night before the exam, Amara barely slept. Her nerves were electric. Her mind buzzed with formulas, proofs, patterns. She stared at the ceiling long after midnight, whispering identities to herself like prayers. By dawn, she was ready. Part 4, the proof. The Jefferson High auditorium was packed. Word had spread. The skeptical came for a show. The curious came with popcorn in their minds. Even the local paper sent a junior journalist with a digital camera. At the front of the stage stood a massive whiteboard. A single equation stretched across it like a riddle from another world. It was an unsolved problem, one that had appeared in university math competitions. No one expected it to be cracked today, but Amara wasn't here for their expectations. Mr. Callahan stood off to the side, arms crossed, face unreadable. He gestured toward the board with a forced smile. "Miss Bennett believes she can solve this," he said dryly. The auditorium hummed with tension. Amara walked to the board, marker in hand. The lights were hot, her palms were damp, but she centered herself. She had seen this pattern before, not this exact one, but the bones of it, hidden in diner receipts, whispered in library aisles, scribbled in notebooks on sleepless nights. She began to write. One by one, the pieces fell into place. She worked with laser focus, aware of every eye in the room, but refusing to let it matter. When she reached the midpoint of the equation, the room was dead silent. Not even the teachers whispered now. Jason, one of the few students who had spoken kindly to her before all of this, leaned forward in his seat, trying to track her work. He blinked, shook his head, and kept watching. When Amara finally set the marker down and turned around, it was as if she'd shattered a spell. Dr. Reeves stepped forward. His eyes scanned the board from left to right, pausing now and then to recalculate in his mind. Then he smiled. "Absolutely correct," he said. Gasps rippled through the room. Jason stood up, eyes wide. "No way," he whispered. Amara's gaze found Mr. Callahan. He looked as if he had swallowed a lemon whole. "Lucky guess?" she asked quietly, tilting her head. Callahan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Dr. Reeves turned toward him, voice cool but edged with steel. "You mentioned this problem stumped graduate students, correct?" Callahan said nothing. Dr. Reeves returned his attention to Amara. "We need to talk," he said. "There are people at MIT, Harvard, Stanford, colleagues of mine, who would be very interested in meeting you." The students exploded in murmurs and applause. Amara felt weightless, her chest tight with something like joy, like justice. She had done it, in front of everyone, and no one, not Callahan, not Lana, not the entire damn system, could deny her anymore. Part 5. A seat at the table. 2 weeks later, the envelope arrived. It was thick, heavy, official. Amara opened it at the kitchen table, her hands trembling. Her mother stood behind her, breath held. Inside, the letter read, "Congratulations. You have been awarded a full scholarship and immediate placement into the National Mathematics Scholars Program. Your future begins now." Amara let out a soft gasp. Her mother cupped her face and whispered, "I always knew you would." "I wasn't sure," Amara said, tears in her eyes. Her mother smiled. "It's a good thing you didn't let that stop you." They hugged, surrounded by open notebooks, old textbooks, and the quiet hum of a new life beginning. Part 6. Arrival. A year later, Amara sat in a glass-walled study hall overlooking the MIT quad. Her laptop glowed with complex equations. Around her were some of the brightest minds in the country, kids with tutors, private school backgrounds, math coaches since kindergarten. But Amara wasn't behind. Not anymore. She belonged. Across from her, Jason, yes, that Jason, flipped through his notes, smirking. "Still making the rest of us look bad, huh?" Amara grinned. "I don't make you look bad. You do that to yourself." He laughed, shaking his head. Same old Amara. But he was wrong. Because the girl who once solved equations in a diner closet was now solving the future. And she wasn't stopping.